Hi, and welcome to the Moving Forward Talk Show. I'm your host, Jennifer Collins, along with my friends Christy and Emily. The whole aim for our show is to demonstrate when you've left a high control group, life goes on and healing happens as long as you keep on moving forward. Our topic is our first steps coming out of those high control groups, and this is our second episode in the series. So we will join our conversation already in progress, and I'm happy that you've come back to listen to our second episode. One of the many layers of my upbringing is since I was homeschooled, I had curriculum that was Mennonite curriculum, and it was really kind of odd as a high school student to be trying to figure out now, are they telling me this because they're Mennonite? Or are they telling me this because this is what mainstream Christianity believes? And what would William Branham think about that? And I remember that Shakespeare was supposed to be really horrible. And so when I was a Christian homeschool mom, and I saw that there were families who thought Shakespeare should always be taught and would never, ever be left out of a curriculum, it was another thing that I had to figure out. So I'm wondering, Emily, knowing that you're homeschooled, did you have any of that weird stuff you had to figure out because you were homeschooled and had been part of the high demand group?
Oh, man. Yeah, I don't even think except hearing the cultural references, Shakespeare, I know nothing of Shakespeare. There was definitely certain things and I can't think of a specific right off the top of my head. But, I mean, having lived overseas, leaving a high demand group, even though you may live in the same house with the same people, that because you've left now, it's like walking into an entire different culture, learning these things and trying to, figure out what is from that group and what is cultural and what do I think. And I mean, there's still references that come through and somebody's like, oh, this is fun. Christy sending a meme, sometimes I get a meme sent to me and I'm like, I don't get it. And they're like, how do you not get it? Like, didn't you experience this? And I'm like, no, because I grew up homeschooled and had like 5 friends in my church and couldn't even go to the like high demand group summer camp because it was too worldly. So yeah, I'm just a strange anomaly. But the funny part is I have a friend in my Bible study group right now, and she grew up Lutheran, Sunday school, became a Christian really young, great story. None of this weird traumatic stories of, anything going on. And there's a lot of cultural references she doesn't get. And so she's like, yeah, sorry, I don't get that. I grew up in a cult. And so that's kind of a running joke that, like, sometimes I'm more well-versed in some of these cultural things than she is. And I like learned it all in my adulthood. So, yeah. But theater, oh man, when I lived overseas and living up in the rural area, I lived up in northeastern Uganda and Karamoja, and it's an area where they don't even let people with the Peace Corps go because it's a little bit too dangerous. So we were up there and didn't have a whole lot going on. So somebody started a amateur dramatic society, and I had a chance to be in a play, and it was because there's nothing going on, and I would have never seen myself being in a play, but it was a ton of fun. So, on your 2-hour drive from one town to the next town, I would have my lines recorded on a little voice recorder that I'd use for my language learning and listen to it over and over and over again. And that's how I learned my lines to that play. But oh man, then I knew all my cues. And then the second time we did the play, the gal that was the lead that I was playing opposite of came more than slightly inebriated, so she was messing up her lines left and right, so I totally had to, on the fly, like, kind of recover and go, okay, this is a new experience. So yeah. And then thinking about, I do not dance. I do move. I have fun doing it. I don't care. I look ridiculous. And it took me years to go, you know what? Back like going into the swimming pool in the swimsuit, nobody really cares. And if they do, they're laughing with you and not at you. So I do that. And then it's kind of tradition every Christmas with our friends. We sing karaoke. I do not sing. I cannot sing, but I love singing karaoke because it's a fun thing to do. So, yeah, totally not fully your question, but Jen, yeah, I love this topic. It's freeing, and it's kind of fun to look back and go, wow, yeah, I was there, and now here I am, and having the chance to encourage someone going, yep, it's big, it's scary, but one day at a time, you'll be okay.
So one last topic we would like to address, and before we go into it, we do want to say that we realize people are going to land all over the place on different subjects. And that is exactly what we want for everyone. We want everyone to have the freedom to explore different ideas, to do research, to study the Bible if that is where you are. But we do want to go ahead and talk about some topics that may be a little bit controversial. And we realize they are controversial, but we want to be clear that we have not just taken the opposite of what we were brought up with or what we had put on us in our high control group. We, each one of us, have reasoned through our decisions carefully. And so if you didn't land where we landed, that's okay. And we're happy that you landed somewhere else. But we are going to go ahead and talk about some controversial topics. And I alluded to them at the beginning of the show. So controversial topics might be piercings, maybe not. Maybe that's not controversial for you. Tattoos, maybe that's not controversial for you. Alcohol was definitely something that was only used for communion in the high control group that I was a part of. And then tobacco was also something that was never ever used that I know about by people in our high control group. So those are some of the topics that may come up in this more controversial section. So with all that being said, I'm going to go ahead and let Christy be the first to talk about the controversial topics.
So, okay, I'll just kind of go through piercings, tattoo, alcohol, tobacco in that order to keep it, keep myself grounded on what I'm going to say. But for piercings, I had my ears pierced when I was, 6 or 7 years old. And I had piercings growing up. And then when I got into the message, the high control group we were a part of, my earrings came out. Nobody in the message had earrings. I didn't know that you weren't supposed to have earrings. It's something that's expressly told to you. It's something you kind of glean over time when you join this particular high control group. It's not something that's preached from the pulpit all the time. There was a brother who, I was wearing earrings one day. It was at a church meeting. And he said something like, oh, the devil could sit right on your shoulders and hold those stirrups. And that was the first time I'd ever heard something like that. And I kind of didn't understand what he was talking about. I didn't know he was talking about my earrings. And then my boyfriend at the time, now my husband, told me he means your earrings. A lot of, message women don't wear earrings. And I was like, are you not supposed to? He's like, my sisters and my mom don't. He didn't know this, specific biblical whatever. But I did take them out and I stopped wearing them for a time. I put them back in. I had to work at it a little bit because, if you don't wear them for a while, they kind of close up a little. So yeah, that has never been a problem. I also got my nose pierced. I don't know if you can see it in the video, probably not. But I have a nose piercing. I definitely want... I want to do a second ear piercing. Ear piercings have never been a problem for me. I don't know why they are preached so against in high control groups, especially groups that have Christianity or the Bible as their centerpiece, because there were piercings in the Bible. They had earrings in the Bible. They had nose rings in the Bible. This just seems really strange to me, but I think it's more of a cultural thing. It wasn't something that was quite done in the 1950s, 1960s when this group kind of got its start. As far as tattoos, I'm not opposed to getting a tattoo. For me, it's way too much of a commitment. I can't decide what I want. But down the road, I know some people that have left the message and gotten tattoos. I think that's great. If that's something that you're into. Alcohol and tobacco. For me, like to drink a glass of wine, have a margarita, that sort of thing. I'm not a big fan of the drunk feeling, of the tipsy feeling. It makes me feel out of control. That's not my scene. I don't like to do that. So I'm like a one and done kind of person. I definitely have enjoyed getting to experiment and like try different things, because there's, I had never tried it. I joined the message when I was 17, so there was no drinking. So yeah, that's been a nice like thing to experiment and play with. I personally am not someone who regularly drinks or gets drunk. Just not my thing. Not that I'm against it, just not my thing. And I have still to this day never tried anything tobacco related, like no tobacco products of any kind, no recreational drugs of any kind. It's just, I don't know. I have family members that have like addiction. My grandfather had COPD and like, respiratory issues from smoking. And so that's probably part of it. I just have never had an interest in doing it, probably never will. And that's kind of where I am. But no judgment for people who do.
Well, yeah, I agree with a whole lot of what you said, Christy. And Emily has alluded a little bit in some previous episodes where she's, landed a different place maybe than some of the other people who leave a high demand group. Some people leave a high demand group and then they pick like the most conservative church they could find, where everybody still thinks all of those things we just listed are wrong. Piercing besides maybe one piercing in the ears for the women, any tattoos at all, any alcohol of any kind, any tobacco ever. So I'd be interested, Emily, to hear what you have to say about, how you came to your ideas. I know that some of it had to do with just being culturally in contact with people who had ideas that were not like those you'd been brought up with.
Very, very true, and thinking about and reading biblical passages. Even we haven't gotten into our first haircuts, but, it was always a woman's crown of glory is her hair. But if you dig into even the cultural reasoning behind what they preach about not cutting your hair, it's fascinating. And if you look at tattoos and the cultural history of that, marking for the dead and stuff, and alcohol, my favorite out of context Bible verse is when people are like, oh, just be a Proverbs 31 woman. I'm like, okay, here, let me read you Proverbs 31, verses 4 through 7. And it says, it is not for the kings, Lemuel, it is not for the kings to drink wine, it is not for the rulers to crave beer, lest they drink and forget what has been decreed and deprive all the oppressed of their rights. Let beer be for those who are perishing, and wine for those who are in anguish. Let them drink and forget their poverty and remember their misery no more. That's my favorite out of context Bible verse. But what was Jesus' first miracle? He turned water into wine. And guess what? Well, it was just new wine, and that was like grape juice. Well, if you read in context, the guy who's running the wedding party, he's like, man, normally they bring out the really terrible wine after everybody gets all drunk, But no, everybody kind of got all stupid and drunk. And then you brought out the really, really good stuff. So tell me how that was just grape juice. But yeah, so where did I land without giving the whole... But I could go through each one of those, I'm saying, as far as... It's... man, so many rules, and it's fascinating. If you read Colossians 2, all these rules are destined to perish and they lack in restraint of any sensual indulgence. And you look at these people that follow all these rules, but who are they behind the scenes, There's some kind of big jerks out there that the church protects because, well, they do all the right things on the outside. So piercings. My first piercing was this upper ear piercing. I got that when my parents were on vacation. And my dad came home. This was after the previous vacation was my first haircut. And so that was super traumatizing, even though my hair was like still way mid-back, But I got this piercing, and I forget what gauge it is, but Dad saw it, he grabbed it and pulled it fresh fresh piercing, brand new fresh piercing. And he goes, what's this? Oh, man, that hurt so bad. But so that was my first piercing. And then I got these pierced. And then, yes, I am probably the one in the group. I don't have one tattoo. I have two tattoos. The first tattoo I got, actually, I was getting the tattoo the very day that I got the call from the travel agent that my one-way trip or my one-way ticket to Uganda to go serve as a long-term missionary was booked. And that has Saved by Grace, April 3rd, 2002. And so that's the day that I was saved by grace, and it's like a seed with the earth kind of inside, and it's sprouting out, and the leaf at the top is actually a 3-leaf Trinity knot, and then the Bible verses on either side is Joshua 1:9, be strong and courageous, the Lord thy God's with you wherever you go, and then 1 Peter 1:22 through 23, which says you've been born again, not of perishable seed, but imperishable seed. So that's kind of that seed sprouting out. And then across it all, I have a cross with the roots dug down into the seed. So that's my first tattoo. And then my second tattoo I went and got with a good friend of mine. She was just there as an observer. That was the summer that I was hanging out with her and her husband after 31 years in the Message. And that one's on my foot. And it's a semicolon, which is significant if you understand that. And then it says, but God. And that comes from Genesis chapter 50, verse 20. And kind of the quick backstory. Joseph's brothers sold him into slavery. A bunch of terrible things happen. His father ends up dying. And now the brothers are like, hey, man, so we're like here with you. And dad, our buffer's not here anymore. So we're still cool, right? And he's like, you know, what you intended for harm, God intends for good. And it's but God. So that's kind of a lot of really, really hard, terrible things can happen. But what's the but God story? And sometimes it's, you know, still hard and not very pleasant, but that's kind of my hope, in that. Alcohol. My very first experience with alcohol was I took some grape juice from our orchard, still well within the high control group. And being the homeschool kid, I took a glass bottle and a balloon and I added some bread yeast, which is not the right type of yeast for making alcohol, but I added that and some sugar and I put that in the back of my closet, and then I check on it because I read, you know, the balloon will expand as the gases and then kind of go down. So I did ferment something. So you can have the kid in the high control group, you can homeschool them, you can protect them, but they're still going to make booze in the back of their closet. And then my neighbor would let me come over and a few years later then try. I still cannot look at Arbor Mist. I can't think about Arbor Mist. That was the alcohol of choice to feel drunk. I did not like that. I do not like that, but I like to casually have some alcohol just because I enjoy the taste and it's a social thing to do. And I think around here, especially being in the drunkest state of the nation, I think if you look at the top 20 drunkest counties in the nation, I think about 16 of them are in our state. But I think it's really, really a loud witness to be able to go out with friends and you can have your 1 or 2 drinks and maintain sobriety and have fun, and you don't have to get drunk and stupid. And I think there's way more that is said in that than if you're just like, nope, I'm not going to drink. I'm better than that, you know? So I think that actually speaks a lot louder to my friends. And then I do enjoy like a nice 18-year-old Lagavulin or some nice scotch or something like that. I'm more scotch than bourbon in my whiskeys. But anyway, and then tobacco. Never have a desire with all the chemicals to try cigarettes. I think that is the absolute worst thing that you can do for your body. That's my personal opinion. I have friends who smoke cigarettes, and so be it. I did try when I was in my late teens a little pinch of chewing tobacco. That was the grossest, most terrible experience in my life. And there was like not enough toothpaste in the toothpaste tube to get rid of that taste. But then being overseas, like I said, helping coordinate and run a church retreat with a lot of South African believers and a lot of British believers. They like to smoke cigars and pipes and have some really, really nice scotch. And so I was invited by a bunch of the church leaders to hang out around the campfire, and you want to try a cigar? I'm like, sure, why not? And so I enjoy a nice dark Maduro cigar. And yes, it has been talked about on another episode. And yes, everybody was up in arms in the comments, but you know what? Bring it on. Because they're there. You're watching. If you're getting mad about this, just keep watching, and we're just people who are on a journey and moving forward, and we're not here to say, this is what we have believed, now you must follow us. No, we're going, hey, here we are. We have found freedom and we're living life. I love Jesus, and I cuss a little bit and I drink a little bit. So there you go.
Okay. So, piercings. It took me till I was 50 years old to get my ears pierced, and I don't even have my earrings in because I'm wearing my AirPods, and it was easier to just put the AirPods in than find earrings that didn't mess with my AirPods. I'm with you, Christy. There were people in the Bible wearing earrings and nose rings, And I think when I was part of the high control group, there were people who would be converted or they married in, and they maybe had tattoos that they had from their past, and they would like cover them up. Like they would be the people who wore the longest skirts if they had a tattoo on their ankle or something. They would always wear super long sleeves if they had a tattoo on their arms. And then when I started going to a mainstream church and I had met a lady who had tattoos, I thought, oh, probably that's from her past. Well, no. The more I got to know her, she really liked tattoos and she was going to continue to get some more tattoos. And I kind of just paid attention. I wasn't going to say once I started studying the Bible and I realized that that's not what the Bible's talking about when it's talking about, making marks on your skin. That had to do with idolatry. And it's, no different than having linen clothing or planting your beans and corn in the same field or having a cheeseburger. So I just started to watch and see what this lady was like. She was the sweetest lady. She came up to the church and said, you know what? I'd like for us to start preparing a meal once a week. There's a homeless ministry in our area, and they take it to homeless people on the street. And so I'd like for our church to get together one day a week and make a meal for these people. And I'm all about that. That's my heart. I'm like, if we can find the least of these, those are the people that we should be ministering to. And so from then on, tattoos are fine. I don't want one. It's going to hurt a whole lot. And I'm not about pain in the least. I don't want extra pain at all. Matter of fact, that's why it took me. I was 40 when I left the message and 50 before I got my ears pierced because I'm chicken. I don't want to hurt myself. But it wasn't that bad. It wasn't that bad to get my ears pierced. And really, to be honest, I knew that my children were of an age my sons were going to be having girlfriends. And I did not want my sons' girlfriends to think, oh, my mother-in-law, she is so weird. She used to be in a cult and she has never gotten over it. She's never even pierced her ears. And I didn't want to be that kind of person. So I wanted to be a part of the family and be able to relate to these young ladies on an even level, not as somebody who used to be in a cult. So that, that's just breaking the ties that bind or whatever, breaking the shackles. As far as alcohol, I'm on the same page as the both of you about that. Jesus made really good wine. And the joys of wine are spoken of all through the Bible. And as a matter of fact, it's really odd that at the high control group, they use wine for communion, but you're not allowed to have it any other time. So it's not that they're teetotalers. It's not that. It's, again, just kind of like the dancing. They're taking away joy from life. And I'm also not about getting drunk. I think it's biblical not to get drunk. I think we should be in control of our faculties, be able to serve the people around us, be able to make decisions that are reasoned and sober. But yeah, I don't see abstaining from alcohol entirely. Tobacco, I could maybe have a difference about that just because I've heard it described as the most addictive substance on the planet. And there's lots of people who've died of cancer, and I would hate for anybody to hear me say it might be okay to try tobacco, and then they try tobacco and they get hooked on tobacco and they die of lung cancer, So I'd say, yeah, if you can stay away from tobacco, it's not going to hurt you at all. You'll be great for the rest of your life without ever trying tobacco, but don't do it just because you think it's like biblically wrong, because there's no scripture in the Bible against tobacco, unless the part about, trying to keep your body in the best shape that you can. That would be the only scripture I could stand on for that. So anyway, everybody lands different places, but the point is we all have the responsibility really to look at each of these ideas for ourselves, to research them, to look at why are we doing what we're doing, and certainly don't do what you do because someone says that they have the authority to tell you what to do, I guess. And that, I don't know, that sounds a lot more rebellious than I am, really. But it's just really important that you know why you're doing what you're doing and that you make a decision for yourself. So we've been talking about controversial topics, and we really have not even gotten into one of the topics, which is actually sort of definitive in the high control group we grew up in, and that is women's hair. And there's actually a whole chapter in 1 Corinthians that talks about women's hair and women's roles and so forth. And so from that, I think it's 1 Corinthians 11 maybe is where most of the ideas about uncut hair comes from. And as you can tell by looking at us, I think that none of us have entirely uncut hair, although Christy does have her hair pulled back today, so you wouldn't be able to tell that necessarily unless you just knew. But anyway, and we also have talked about having people in our friend circle and people in our families who have left the Message or other high control groups who did not choose to trim their hair or cut their hair or do anything different with their hair. And that's the decision that they made. So, that again shows how that you can make your own decision. But we do want to talk a little bit about what that was like when we did decide to do something with our hair, how we went about it, or what the feelings were with it. I don't want to talk about my experience first because mine was probably pretty not typical. I'm usually the weird one when it comes to everything that I do. So, Emily, you talked already about when you cut your hair. You said that your parents were on vacation. Do you want to talk any more about that?
Yeah, my parents were on vacation. So let me tell you, after the haircut and then the piercing, the next time my parents went on vacation, my dad's like, "What are you going to do now?" But yeah, so my first haircut, my friend that grandma had actually set me up with and said, "You should be friends with her." And I was super introverted. Her mom was actually a hairdresser. And so her mom was very gracious at age 21, giving me my first haircut. I think somewhere I still have a little lock of my first haircut. I almost think I found my baby book and put it in there. And so my hair was down, sitting on a chair. My hair would be touching the chair, definitely. And so I think I went up maybe about, 6 inches or so, and then slowly keep going up. And it was just, oh my goodness, even just taking a shower and not having to use all that shampoo and then not having that weight, like tying your hair back and having a braid and you have all this extra weight. And I know so many women that actually it'll start to recede their hairline, they'll get headaches and things like that. So that was great. And then when I moved overseas, but every time I would get a headache or get a haircut after that, my dad would be like, oh, it was just starting to look nice. Why'd you go get another haircut? And I think he's finally stopped commenting on the haircuts after I came back from living overseas. And it was so hot. And a lot of times the shower or the water pressure was like 0. So you just wanted to get in, get it done, be done with it quick. There wasn't like hair dryers and irons and all these things. So it progressively got shorter. And then at one point I was getting ready to go on holiday for school break. And there was like one person in the city of 2 million people that could do a good white person haircut. And she wasn't around. And so I'm like, I'll just kind of do it myself. And well, as it progressed, I ended up doing it all one finger length all the way around to make it even. And I loved it. It looked ridiculous, but I absolutely loved that haircut. And now it's growing out again because that's the fun thing about hair. You can cut it, you can dye it, you can do all this stuff. And unless you have alopecia or baldness or something, a large majority of people, you do something fun with your hair and it'll grow back and have a little bit of fun and creativity. But yeah, that's besides pants, it's a very visible thing and people judge you a lot about it. So it was very freeing. And absolutely 100% super traumatic. Like, oh my goodness, so traumatic. And then that friend, her mom stopped cutting hair, and I'm like, what am I gonna do? And so I found another friend at church that cut hair, and I would only go to her, and I'm like, oh no, she doesn't cut hair anymore. What am I gonna do? And now I don't care who cuts my hair. I just go in and go, okay, take care of it, and this is what I want. But it was like, I need to be friends with you before I'll let you touch my hair because this is super scary. Even like 10 years later was like kind of like a little when you get your hair cut. But I am not a prostitute, so I feel that the Bible in context does not apply to me with my short hair. Because I do believe that was the historical context. So instead, I'm getting married and I shall show that by a ring on my finger instead of the length of my hair. So that's my 55 cents on the subject.
I cut my hair for the first time. It was probably, a couple of months after we left. And when I say I cut my hair, I mean, I personally took a pair of scissors and cut all of like the strangly bits at the very bottom of my hair. And that's all that happened. So that it would just like look a little bit healthier. It took me a long time to actually get into a salon and cut my hair. And when I went, I told my husband I'm going to cut a bunch. And my hair was it was down past my bottom at that point. And I went in and got my hair cut and came home. It was like not even mid-back, still really long hair. But it progressively got shorter. About 2 or 3 years out of leaving the message, I did cut my hair up above my shoulders, which was so weird. It was like the weirdest feeling to have my hair that short. I kept my hair long before I was in the message too, so it was like a super weird feeling. I had short hair for a while. I'm now at this point in my life where if I'm gonna have my hair longer, it needs to be now, right? Like I can't wait, if I want to have long flowing locks, while I still can sport that, I need to do it. So I'm growing my hair back out. But I regularly get trims. I get my hair color treated. I do highlights, all the fun stuff. I don't really consider You know, the discomfort that I had in the very beginning, I just doesn't even register with me anymore. There's just no hang-ups with my hair. But in the beginning, it was definitely something that I didn't know what was right, and I wanted to do what was right. And it took me a long time to get past that. And now it's not something that I think about. I don't think about the rightness or wrongness of it. And maybe that's not everybody, but for me especially, there's a lot of peace in myself just being able to make that decision and knowing it doesn't impact my worth as a person to make this personal choice for my own grooming. So that's kind of where I am with hair.
Yeah, Christy, you said exactly what I was going to say, and it's not a surprise to anybody who knows me. That's something I definitely dove in deep to find out, what was really Paul talking about when he was talking to the Corinthians, and, what is this about? And really, by the time I came out of it, and maybe it's partly because I had grown up around Amish people who wore a prayer covering. Those women they wear a covering over their hair all the time. I came to the point where I really believed that the Catholics who wear hats to church and the Amish who wear prayer coverings are closer to right than the people who say you should never cut your hair. Because for one thing, there were Nazirite vows in the Old Testament where women, they would say that they were going to have this Nazirite vow. And then at the end of the vow, they had to shave their heads. And so it's a cultural thing. And I think it was probably, Queen Victoria or somebody who brought long hair into fashion, and then it became synonymous with virtue. And then it became something that they proof texted in the Bible and didn't take the context at all. And so by the time it was time to get anything done with my hair, it was a non-issue. It was more about my comfortability, and I'm still there, Emily, with having the friend who was my original core leader at Community Bible Study, who still does my hair. So she does a pretty good job. I'm going to go see her tomorrow and check out what's going on up here, because that color is just not quite right. I'm not sure if my hair's not taking the color, or maybe we just need to touch it up a little bit. I don't know, but hair's a big thing for women. I think we probably are wrapped up in our hair a lot. It says the way you fix your hair sort of says a lot about who you are. Just like the clothes that you wear sort of say a lot about who you are. I'm a mom. I wear comfortable clothes. And I'm a certain age, so I do have gray hairs that I want to color. And for years and years, I never colored my hair because I was pregnant or nursing for years and years, and I didn't want to do that. I thought that might not be the best thing, to be nursing a baby and be getting my hair colored. And other people make different choices, but that was me. That was just my comfortability. So when my youngest was no longer nursing, then I said, okay, I'm going to get my hair colored. And I thought I would get a perm. I was one of these people who was way too holy to get a perm, even though the Brandon message doesn't speak specifically against perms very much. I think there's one quote you can find where a woman had to have perm before she could sing in the choir or something. And that was pointed out as being too wrapped up in herself or something. But I was going to get a perm, and my hairdresser says, nobody gets perms now. It's not a thing. You don't do that. So I said, okay, what should I get? What should I do to my hair? And so, but I also have, I take thyroid medicine. So my hair doesn't grow the greatest. And I asked her last time I went there, I said, no. So how high would we have to go to get my hair like straight, like one length? And she's like, it'd be above your shoulders. I was like, nope, not doing that yet. Not doing that yet. So I just wanted a little more definition. I'm like you, Christy. I don't like the straggly bits at the bottom. I wanted to look healthy. I wanted to look well groomed. And really, the way I wear my hair now is a lot more glorious than the way I used to wear my hair, because what I used to do with my hair was either in a ponytail or a braid, and it was on the back of my head, and I really looked like I hardly had any hair at all. I don't know. And it was sort of a manly way to take care of your hair, really, in retrospect, compared to what I do now and try to make it look pretty. I had a little bunch of curls that I stuck on the back of my head when I wanted to dress up, just because my hair wasn't, with the thyroid issue and everything, I wasn't going to have a big bunch of curls, But anyway, all that to say, it's just hair. It's a lifestyle choice. And there are reasons behind why people do what they do. People don't just go out and cut their hair to be rebellious, even though you may have heard that over the pulpit. That's really not what most people are thinking about when they go get their hair cut. There might be a few, but that's really not the main thing. So that might be the most controversial topic of all, the haircut topic. But, and as we've said, and I'll repeat that, we have loved ones, we have, people we know who made other decisions about their hair. They decided to keep it the way it is. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. Nothing in the Bible that says you have to cut your hair either. So, you do you. You do you.
Yeah, to me, it's a first step to acknowledge that you have the freedom to make the choice and that your neighbor has the freedom to make that choice, right? So I might come down on the side and I say, maybe you're out there and you've left the message and you say, I'm not ready to cut my hair. That's fine. I think what is a really important first step is for you to say, I'm not going to do this, but I am not going to exclude someone else from my circle because they do. And when we were in the message, that was not a step we could take. If someone cut their hair in the message, they weren't quite as holy as the rest of us. They weren't quite as in with what we were doing. So even that acknowledgement of saying, we're going to extend grace here. We're going to say, even if I disagree with your rationale for doing it, maybe you come down on the same side doctrinally, but you can say somebody else can have a different opinion here, and that's perfectly fine. Maybe you kind of go the other way and you say, I don't care at all what the Bible says. I'm going to cut my hair, and I'm not going to think through the theological arguments. I'm not going to do that. As long as you don't judge the people who do and the people who are taking their time to make that decision, that is a huge first step. Just allowing everyone to take the journey out of the high demand group in their own time and on their own terms is a huge thing we can do for each other and for ourselves.
Thank you everyone for listening. We hope you found our show both informative and helpful. Feel free to contact us at movingforwardtalkshow.com with any questions or ideas for future shows. If you disagree with the things you heard today, we're happy to let you disagree with us. And if you want to comment below and say that you disagree, we're happy to hear what you have to say. If you agree with us, we're happy to hear that too. Feel free to leave us any questions you may have either in the comments or at movingforwardtalkshow.com. I look forward to hearing from you as we continue to demonstrate that life goes on and healing happens as long as you keep moving forward.